As it is, the lover of inquiry must follow his beloved wherever it may lead him. This is a quote from the dialogue called the Euthyphro, and it was written by the Greek philosopher Plato around 399 BCE. It is just one of the many things that I've had the privilege to learn about in my Introduction to Philosophical Reasoning class. In this class, I learned about many iconic thinkers of the ancient world, but none of them has stood out to me as much as one specific philosopher who is said to have laid the groundwork for modern science as we know it today. This philosopher's name is Aristotle of Stagirus. Aristotle is the first philosopher to really explore and teach a wide array of ideas. To begin with, I'll explain his idea of the forms. After this, I'll share with you his view on ethics. And lastly, I'll talk to you about the relationship between the potential and actuality among things in accordance with Aristotle. First, I'll talk about Aristotle's idea of the forms. To understand his idea of the forms, you must first understand the term form. The form of something is what gives that something its essence, what makes that particular something different than everything else. For this, think of a frog. All frogs share in common a universal structure that make them frogs. This is the form of a frog. Aristotle's theory of the forms is that these forms lay inside of things, meaning that this universal structure that makes a frog is inside the actual frog, or the essence of a cat is inside the actual cat. According to Book 2 of Aristotle's On the Soul, these forms are different throughout different types of things, as there are both living and non-living things. For non-living things, the form is an internal structure that makes an object what it is. An example of this would be, say, the chemical makeup of a diamond. And as for living things, the form is the soul. The soul is what makes... The soul is defined by Aristotle as an organized, functioning internal structure. You can think of the soul as a network of how a person is able to function. In addition to the forms, Aristotle also has opinions and ideas on ethics as well. Virtues are the main focus of his teaching of ethics. According to Book 1 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, a virtue is defined as any skill necessary for all humans to be good at being humans. Some of the typical virtues include traits such as courage, loyalty, and bravery. Contrary to what you may believe, these virtues are not learned purely out of instinct, as Aristotle believed that virtues are choices. Virtues cannot exist without vices, as virtues are actually the midpoint between two different types of vices. These types of vices are the lack of a virtue and an excess of a virtue. Take as an example the virtue of courage. A lack of courage can be considered to be cowardice, as an excess of a virtue can be considered to be arrogance. Here you can see more examples of the different types of virtues and vices. In the middle you have your different types of virtues. On the left you have the lack of a virtue type of a vice, and on the right you have the excess of a virtue type of a vice. And lastly, I'd like to talk about the relationship that Aristotle saw between the potential and actuality among things. According to Book 12 of Aristotle's Metaphysics, all things contain within themselves the potential to do something, to realize an actuality. For this, I want you to visualize an acorn. When an acorn is just an acorn, it has the potential to grow and become a tree. When it does grow and become that tree, it realizes its actuality, its endgame. However, Aristotle argues that actuality is of greater importance than potential. There can be no change from potential to actuality if there wasn't first something actual. For this, my example would be a child. A child has the potential to grow and become an adult. However, there can be first a child if there wasn't first an adult. With this realization, Aristotle surmised that for there to be a world of such change and potential, there must have first been a being of pure actuality. This being is known as the prime mover. Aristotle refers to the prime mover as the reason for motion, or in other words, the reason that everything is in a state of transitioning from potential to actuality. To explain how it causes such change, think of the prime mover as a beloved who moves the lover simply by being the object of their love. This is the power of attraction rather than force. And to sum things up, Aristotle is the first philosopher to really explore and teach a wide array of ideas. I first talked today about his idea of the forms. The next topic that I covered was Aristotle's view on ethics, and the last teaching of Aristotle's that I talked about today was the relationship between the potential and actuality among things. I truly believe that without Aristotle, modern science as we know it today would not exist.